All right, so I want to kind of reset just for a little bit. I want to say what we're all enduring here is this fight or flight, or what is it? Fight, flight, or freeze. Your
fawn. There's another F in there.
Your amygdala is being hit, and you're lighting up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
So as we're feeling that, how does that manifest in the husband-wife relationship? Where does that begin to start to show itself? Where you understand the question there of what are we going to start doing? How are we going to act out maybe in a negative way? How does that manifest?
So what we've been noticing is that a lot of people are feeling emotionally flooded, and what that is, the reaction to that and the response to that is like to get into like arguments, to get into like disagreements, to have that sadness and anger toward each other, and not realizing that, you know, my partner is not the enemy. Pandemic is the enemy. Right?
I love this idea. It's you're not my enemy, the pandemic is. And to keep that as the center of the issue. Okay.
But the difficulty is that we can see our partner.
Yes.
We can't see the pandemic, and so
Yes.
we need a lightning rod.
Yes.
And you know, somebody not putting up the cereal and so it goes stale is an excellent lightning rod.
How do I catch myself? I'm in the middle. I'm acting out because I'm overstressed, and I could set up the whole scenario. But as I'm in the middle of that, how do I kind of stop, reassess, press the pause button, and say, you know, maybe it's not you, maybe it's what's going on. What are some strategies to deal with that when I'm in the moment?
So in Gottman's work, we talk about like timeouts and looking for some safety words that you can even give as a signal to each other.
Okay.
Like I had one couple that come up with like pineapple, and I was like, what? Or like sloth, and I was like, the animal sloth? Or like things like that. And one couple, they wanted to go to Hawaii and take a Hawaiian trip. So they will say every time when, you know, like flooding is taking place and they can catch each other, like one of the partners will say that safety word, and then they will have their signal to actually engage in a timeout. What timeout is like physical separation, where
Okay.
you go in the other room, or you go for a walk, go play with your doggy.
Right. Something to physically separate. And now when I'm coming back, I'm trying to think of some things that have helped me in my marriage. There's a tool that we use, what I hear you saying.
Active listening.
I
What I hear you're saying is that you're correct, honey.
I don't actively listen.
Oh,
I
no.
only do that when I realize I've really messed up, and then I have to
Retroactively active listening.
Yes, retroactive active listening.
Yes.
What are some strategies to then re-engage? We've taken a break. We've taken time out.
Well, so they're talking about like some of those like Gottman ideas are the soft startup, and what that means is like when you have taken that time to cool off and you're in a better place, like you approach your partner, whoever actually called the time out or the safety word, has the responsibility to engage the partner.
I love that.
And they approach with a soft startup, meaning like, we're not gonna go there and say, you're such a slob, you never clean the dishes. We're gonna say something along the lines of like, honey, you know, I feel frustrated when, you know, the counter is all dirty or there are dishes in the sink. Like, can you please help me? Or I'd really appreciate if you can help me with that.
And is it recognizing some of those triggers? That there's some. I don't. I'll get very personal. I don't notice my clothes on the floor until I then realize it's a problem for
someone notices.
until someone else notices.
Yeah.
But how do we recognize?
So here's and this is from Gottman's stuff as well, is that and a lot of us now have like Fitbits and stuff like that. So there's a key number, 100 beats per minute, which is your heart rate. Once you reach that, you're technically flooded, and you cease to be able to engage in helpful conversation.
Okay.
So if you have a Fitbit, and you can kind of then not practice like fighting, but learn a little bit more about your own rhythm. Whenever you begin to feel that, you'll know what your body is doing, and you'll take the cues from that, like, oh, I'm getting there, or I am there. And then that's whenever you need to disengage.
Okay.
And it happens a lot sooner than we think it does.
Now you've both mentioned this kind of disengaging. We're occupying a lot closer quarters. For some of us, there's no job to go to. Where's the release? There's no gym to go to. There's no golf course. So how do we do that in a world now that has just thrown us together and said, you're confined for a time and you must deal? How do you manage that?
Well, so one of the things is like to do sort of like your own exploration and adventure at home. Like, for example, you can set up like a little date night on the patio.
I like that.
You can do like a little, time for you. They call them like State of the Union meeting, where you meet with your loved one, like maybe it's outside or in a specific room, in your house, and you just talk about the things. So what have been things that went good this week or this
Yes.
day even? Like, what are things that we're grateful for? And that's our meeting with each other to appreciate and be grateful for the things that actually have been good instead of seeing just the negatives.
And do you incorporate the whole family into that, or do you keep that just between the husband and wife?
Well, so they recommend that you keep it like as a couple, sort of like those date nights that usually we'll go outside, we'll go for a dinner or a movie or,
Right.
Have a date night, but we can do like that exploration and adventure in the house. Where, as you said, like a little dinner on the patio, and you set it up for each other, and you can enjoy it that way, where you have your own time. Maybe you have put the kids to bed, maybe it's in that time frame where you can have that individual time just for the two of you,
Right.
so that you can talk actually for you and your well-being as a couple together.
And with that, one of the things that, and I think I mentioned this last time, the importance of touch during this time is that one of the things that kind of keeps us at that heightened arousal is that we're not getting one of the things that actually calms us down and helps us center, which is touch, which releases oxytocin. It helps us feel attached and connected and safe. And so we're not getting a lot of that. And so it's also being purposeful in your marriage to touch each other.
Yeah.
With respect and honor and permission, all that kind of stuff. But whether it's holding hands, of course we're in a pandemic, but guess you're living in the same air, right? And so don't forget, you may be all day together in the same room and never touch each other.
Yeah.
So don't forget that still needs to take place, and you don't have to solve anything or have some deep conversation.
Yeah.
Just touch.
Sometimes it's just occupying the same space in an intentional way,
Yeah.
in a deliberate way, other than that we're all forced to occupy the same space.
I would say overlap in
Right.
the same space.
There we go. I love that.
And one of the other things that Gottman is talking about is like taking each other's emotional temperature as well. Like sort of, I know we've been taking physical temperature to them, so
Yes,
emotional temperature, where you're actually checking in, hey, how are you feeling today? Like, or what is going on for you? Because with all those stressful messages we've been receiving through the news and things that we see out there in the social space, in the media, it's hard to actually, keep your emotions at check, which actually leads to flooding, which leads to arguments, so forth. It's a vicious cycle. So how can we actually check in with each other, maybe even preventatively, before it gets to that emotional arousal?
And maybe giving, and I'm giving advice here that I have no training for, but giving one another permission. My wife has complete permission to say to me, maybe an hour of reading blog articles on drug trials is more than you need to do. Maybe you need to step back and go for a walk, or go wash the car, or do something that's making a break from, because I do find myself, I call it hamster wheeling. That is, again, not a psychological term, but of getting in this unbreakable cycle of thoughts and checking. We talked about it last time. Checking social media, over and over.
Well, and you mentioned a good point there, and that is that absolutely. So we want to try to be aware of what's going on in ourselves, but sometimes we are not. Let's just be honest. Like, I'm not that aware of a person as much as I try to be. And so sometimes Amanda will see, hey, something's off. Maybe you're not doing too well today. What's going on? And we need our partners to intervene and speak to us and say, are you really doing as good as what you're saying? you're doing? And do you need to switch and do something else? Do you need space? Do you need, and we have to receive that and receive that influence from our partners.
One of the things that Jeremy and I talked about our last time together, and I thought of the greatest Star Wars reference for this. So the folks watching, they'll appreciate this. There's a scene where Luke has to go into this dark place, and Yoda says to him, "Are you a Star Wars fan at all?" Okay. And Yoda says to him, take only, how's he say it?
I've never seen Star
whatever, Wars. Get out right now. Whatever you take in there is what you're going to bring. And so don't take that, and he tells him his lightsaber, don't take your lightsaber in there, or you're going to have a battle. And I had this thought today that, much like we said last time, we have gone into quarantine, we've gone into isolation as ourselves. And we showed up with all of the same dysfunction, with all of the same issues that we could ignore, that we could medicate away with some of our bad habits. But the same is true about our marriages. We've now gone into isolation with each other, into quarantine with each other, with the same issues that were there before. But now, are they?
We can't avoid each other.
Is it boiling up a little bit more? Is that the?
Well, so they're noticing like about 5% increase in a lot of the issues in terms of like domestic violence, for example. Of course, in a lot more serious situations like suicidality, a lot more serious circumstances like addictions as well,
Yes.
like people who struggle with addiction. And of course, we don't have, like, when you think about it, like, well, people could go to like AA meetings, NA meetings, people
Right.
could go to support groups for domestic violence, or people could go to different ways of finding support for their marriage. And now it's like really hard, and even though we're providing services online, right, like we as therapists are still doing therapy online, I feel like there's piece that's been lost there in that teletherapy communication. That's not quite that same level of,
Right.
we need that support there present in the room, and clients have told me, like, you're our moderator right now, like you really help us, and somehow through online, even though we're still there as a moderator, it's not coming at the same level though.
Right.
And the response of couples is not quite, although we're seeing that we're helping, right, it's better to have that. But
So what would you say? What would you say to somebody who says, we've been locked up together now for 5 weeks. Some things have come to the
I
surface.
would jump on that terminology and say, tell me what you mean by locked up. Sorry.
We've been social distanced.
we've been hibernating together.
Yeah. And now we're seeing some of the cracks. We're seeing some of the things bubbling to the surface. What would you tell somebody to do in that situation? Would they seek out? I mean, you guys are going to tell me seek out good professional counseling.
Here's my card.
But what are some things that people can actively do to help?
Well, and again, like, of course, yeah, contact a therapist, but try to be like, as we said, like adventurous and creative in your own home. Like, do those small little rituals of connection. Like in Gottman, they also call it embrace the quickie. And what quickie stands for is like those quick moments of connection throughout the day, those exchanges of, like maybe we're having coffee together. Maybe we're reading the newspaper
Right.
together. Maybe we're just enjoying a moment of observing our child playing in the sand in the backyard, and that's our moment, like a quick exchange of actually some peaceful time together, peaceful time of connection.
Well, and building off of that, so, is a big piece of embracing that moment is that mindfulness portion.
Come on.
And I know it gets, there's pop psychology out there about mindfulness and da-da-da, but
Being
here's
present.
Yes, here's the thing. Whenever so you ask, like, what do we do if we notice ourselves like amping up and we're about to blow our top? Check in with your 5 senses. It's very, very simple. Always get this confused, but it's like 5 things you can touch, 4 things you can see, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. Just kind of go through that, and that actually grounds us and gets us out of that fight or flight. That also allows us to be present whenever we're like, hey, we're, holding our baby, and we're like smelling their hair,
Yeah.
like it gets us out of the pandemic and into really usually the person that we want to be.
I often use the term taking snapshots. And it happens, this is a marriage thing. When I'm doing wedding ceremonies, I will tell couples, you need to stop and take snapshots of the ceremony in your head because of the day. Otherwise, you're liable to go through on autopilot and it all kind of rushes past you. Can we talk about, just briefly, for some of the advantages? We've lost a lot in this I like hibernation. I'm just using that in our hibernation time.
Eating and sleeping. I think that's accurate, you know.
But there are also, I've noticed, we talked about this last time as well, just a multiplicity of families out walking together, and dogs are healthier than they've ever been.
Oh,
I mean, they're walking.
They're exhausted.
They're ready for us to go back to work. But what are some of the advantages to this time that we might be able to seize and say, hey, we would not normally be able to do this, so let's do this?
Well, and that time that you mentioned, like for spending together, right? Like in general day-to-day lifetime, schedule, we are off to work, right? And here we go. And then maybe we have like an hour or two with our kiddos at night. We come back, put them to bed, all of that. We connect with each other, but that's that 2-hour window.
Right.
And now we have like a whole day to enjoy and appreciate. I know sometimes it might be like, oh, it's a little too much. Like,
well, and we've overscheduled in our, I don't want to call it normal. I'm so
Don't say normal, don't say normal.
Things around you people. We were so overscheduled before that, and we wanted to really push back on this, is to say, we do not need to overschedule this time. Yeah. This is not the time to learn a new language or pick up a new hobby or, get your best shape of your life because you've got 6 weeks to. So if we could pull back and say, no, let's really, we use the term redeem this time. Make it for a purpose.
Well, and I do want to clarify just something there is, because I don't want to like shame anyone who's learning a new language or getting the summer body together. Like, awesome, right? But we also have to realize that during this period of time, whenever we go into fight or flight, we may overfunction or underfunction.
There you go.
And that's usually where we're going to end up.
There you go.
It's okay to do that, to kind of get through and cope, but we need to be aware of, are we running away from certain things? Are we overfunctioning and going to the garage to exercise so we don't face the issues with our wife?
There you go.
Right? We need to be honest with ourselves in that first, and then begin to say, okay, how do I have that conversation?
And if this is allowing us time to spend real intentional, deliberate time with our spouses, with adventures. I'm going to use that. I'm going to steal that. To do the things that we would normally not be able to do. You said 2 hours at the end of the day. I always think maybe 2 hours, but some of that's spent doing homework, and then some of that is spent, getting ready for tomorrow, and we're just
dishes, chores.
Yeah, we can now stop and be mindful, present, purposeful. Okay, I'm going to make a very broad softball question. Talk to us and give us just any more insights, advice, coach us up as spouses, how we can do good things during this time.
Well, and you mentioned a little bit of that, like to be aware and attuned to each other's needs, to have like a better understanding of those bits of connection when our partner is trying to connect with us, like, and just, like trying to do maybe even like small little messages throughout the day. I know it sounds trivial, but those love messages you find on your mirror, or like something that shows like, hey, you're special, you're still desirable, you're still the person that I want to be with, and you're the person that, like even though we're struggling right now, it's a stressful situation, but I want to still connect with. And how can we do that? And that may look different for different couples,
yes,
right? Because we all tend to enjoy different things, different hobbies. How can we actually together as a couple, they'll find that time to connect? And
some of that is knowing your spouse, is having done I call it doing the math of
math.
of knowing I can I can write all the notes,
Doing the statistical analysis.
but if I've not, done the acts of service that my spouse needs.
Well, and I think it's, connecting in those moments. Last time we talked about how in times of stress, sometimes our shadow self is revealed, right? The opposite can also be true, is that we've developed in our minds, because we've, whether it's just life or we've overprogrammed and we've let ourselves get disconnected from our spouse, that we view them in an unclear, untruthful way. And this is a time where we can actually reveal that truth again.
That's good.
And explore and take the time and ask the silly questions again. Like, man, what was that movie that you like? Let's, kind of, be the dating couple, so to speak, again, and view each other with the new eyes that allows us maybe to see each other for who we really are.
It's hard to look at this period, this season, with perspective, because we're just enveloped in it. But there will be elements of this time that we will miss.
Yeah.
We will look back and say, right now, I'm thinking about my family, we are eating 3 meals a day together. When else have we ever done that? We had time to go build a hideout. We had time to go do this that we will not have later. And so I think there is something between the Pollyanna and this is the worst thing that's ever happened. Somewhere in the balance of that to say, what are the things that we're going to miss? And let's focus on those and pour our time into that. I don't think we'll wish we had spent more time in Zoom meetings,
No.
or reading articles on drug trials and
Come on, Jeff.
all
Do you know what you're asking?
Okay, I want to talk just very briefly, and I'm going to let these two have the floor. Violeta, you talked about, I love this term, a culture of appreciation. Go from there.
Yeah, so I was just thinking we can create that culture of appreciation where we are actually appreciating or noticing the small little things that our partner does that they're helpful, and we're grateful for that. So thank you for setting up the breakfast table, or thank you for being here with me eating breakfast, or thank you for washing the dishes, whatever it might be, those small little acts of services you mentioned earlier in this talk, that we can actually notice and pause there, talking about mindfulness and just being present with our partner in the moment and appreciate those.
And looking for that. You have to look for that, because we take it for granted, or we rush over it we're trying to get onto something else. But I love that idea of creating a culture of appreciation, of saying, I'm applying that, and I'm thinking that with my children, of stopping to say, I really want to affirm this in you.
Well, and this is I'm going to leave this hanging out there, but what does it mean whenever we say culture? Because it's more than just saying 2 things a day to your spouse,
right,
or to your kids. It's a lot larger thing that we have to remember, right? 2 other things that I wanted. This is mainly in regards to couples, but going back to kind of sometimes we do need space, right? And we're going to have to create that in some way. And whether that's, just in our mind, the front room is kind of my chill out room, whatever. We can kind of divide up our house or our backyard or whatever to get that space, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to say, hey, look, honey, I've seen you for the last 72 hours. I really need another face to look at. I mean, don't say it that way. Don't say it that way. That's bad. That's bad. Don't say it that way.
I was going to say, how does that reflect?
He's such a romantic. I mean, he's a wordsmith.
Come on, it's okay to be honest.
Right.
And I'm speaking as an introvert who, I need that time. And Amanda's not. She's extroverted. She's soaking up anything she can get.
Yeah.
And I'm I don't have anything else.
Right.
And so we have to balance and be honest and not take it personally.
Well, it's
that this is not me rejecting her.
Right.
This is how God created me.
Right.
And that's how God created her. And he put us together. And so how do we work that in harmony? The other thing, just to affirm that, if you're having significant difficulty in your relationship, if it's abusive in any way, all those services are still up and running.
It's great.
Those numbers are still active. You can chat, you can go online in safe ways that won't show up in your browser history, all that kind of stuff. So I just want to kind of put a plug in there for that those services are still going.
Yeah.
So don't think you're alone. That you've been abandoned now by that too.
That term isolation, distancing, it lends itself to making us feel that way, that we're quite alone. I've had to do some very intentional things that used to come very easy in the course of a business day, where I might reach out to some colleagues, where we've created some time to where we could be together. It is on a Zoom call, but and what's very helpful in those times is for someone to say, is anybody else and it's not, I promise to the wives out there, it is not just us getting on to complain about our wives, but there is something very freeing, very powerful in knowing that other people are going through the same thing. So I will just say this in closing: if you are looking for someone to engage with, professional counselors such as these are fantastic. Spiritual counselors such as I we are still available and ready to interact with you in any way. Reach out to friends, family, and loved ones. Do not suffer in silence or suffer alone. Thank you so much for engaging with us. And I don't know if you saw last time, lots of great comments and lots of folks that got to tune in and be with us. So God bless you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.